Hello there. Welcome to video 146 from Sumit Academy. I do hope that you have subscribed to my channel. Do subscribe now so that you do not miss out on my previous or future videos. And do remember to like and share this video too. And if you want to drop in a line, I shall always be available at sumitacademy20@gmail.com. To make your task a little easier, here is a complete list of all the 146 videos available on my YouTube channel. The list is divided into the playlists under which they are available. Do have a look. In this video, we shall try to improve our command over the English language by learning about proverbs and how to use them. I do hope that you had a look at the 4 videos on idioms where we had learned to use 200 idioms in our language. In this video, I shall be talking about 50 proverbs. This is the second of 4 videos on Proverbs. Hope you had a look at my earlier video on Proverbs too. So, we shall be studying a total of 200 Proverbs over these 4 videos. Proverbs are popular sayings that provide nuggets of wisdom. Proverbs give some form of life advice. Every language and culture has them, and many proverbs exist in more than one language. It is important not to miss any of the words in most proverbs because the meaning can be lost even if one word is changed or left out. So, what is the difference between an idiom and a proverb? An idiom is a phrase or expression that has a meaning that in most cases cannot be deduced directly from the individual words in that phrase or expression. For example, the idiom bite off more than you can chew doesn't mean you bite more than a mouthful of a cake or something else and then struggle to chew. It means you try to do something that is too difficult for you. On the other hand, proverbs are well-known sayings stating a general truth or advice. For example, the proverb, "A picture is worth 1,000 words," is a general truth. The idiom, "bite off more than you can chew," however, is neither a general truth nor an advice. So, we may say that a proverb is a short, pithy saying that expresses a traditionally held truth or piece of advice based on common sense or experience. Let's have a look. Our first proverb is "going to hell in a handbasket." Now, this curious phrase means in extremely bad state and becoming worse, heading for disaster or deteriorating rapidly. Let's see an example sentence. With a bribery rate of 39% and malpractices everywhere, the political scenario seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. Let's have a look at another sentence. The bank was rapidly going to hell in a handbasket when the chairman and some top officials were accused of fraud. Our second proverb is "don't make a mountain of a molehill." Now, this is a piece of advice which asks you not to exaggerate the importance of something trivial. It also means elaborating something in a very dramatic way by overemphasizing it to make it sound more important than it actually is. Let's see an example sentence. Don't worry, it is just a small injury. If you don't have to make a mountain of a molehill by rushing to the emergency ward. Another one, the Indian media is quite fond of making a mountain of a molehill by extensive coverage of even minor events. Then we come to the proverb, "good fences make good neighbors." This means that neighbors are best able to maintain good relationships when they don't intrude upon or harm each other's property, privacy, or interests. And on to our example sentence. Even though they were good friends, Ravi and Pushpal decided to build a fence between their houses, for good fences make good neighbors. Let's try another one. The present standoff between Nepal and India could have been prevented by better secured borders, for good fences make good neighbors. Our fourth proverb is, "a half-truth is a whole lie." If you do not tell the whole truth, you can mislead people just as if you tell them an outright lie. We should always remember that not being completely honest can be as deceitful as lying. Intentionally omitting information is equivalent to lying. Let's try out an example sentence. Even if you want to protect him, do tell him the entire truth, for a half-truth is a whole lie. Another one, "I am upset that you did not tell me the real story." A half-truth is a whole lie, you know. We now come to "barking dogs seldom bite." This means that people who make themselves appear threatening or talk in a rough and rude way will rarely do any harm. They just love to blow off steam by their words and attitudes. Our example sentence is, "I was worried that I would be sacked for not completing the project on time." but my boss just shouted angrily and gave me more time. I guess barking dogs seldom bite. Then we have advice is least heeded when most needed. Advice is something that wise men don't need and foolish people won't take. And the greater the need for advice, the less likely the foolish person is to heed it. That is, to pay careful attention to it. Our example sentence says, he would not have committed such a grave error if he had listened to his mother's advice. Oh well, advice is least heeded when most needed. Another one. I should have listened to my friend before investing in that company, but I was carried away by the publicity. I suppose advice is least heeded when most needed. The seventh proverb on our list is don't judge a man until you have walked a mile in his shoes. This is a really good piece of advice, asking one to have empathy, spend time trying to consider or understand another person's perspectives, experiences, or motivations before making a judgment about them. Let's try out a sentence. I know that he is rude and mean-spirited, but try to understand him. You really can't judge a man until you have walked a mile in his shoes. Another sentence. You must consider and try to understand Anil's perspectives, experiences, or motivations before making a judgment about him. You can't judge a man until you have walked a mile in his shoes. Our eighth proverb is better safe than sorry. Do everything possible to keep bad things from happening to you. It only takes a second to put on a seatbelt or to check that you locked the door. But if you're not safe, the bad results can last a lifetime. So it's best for you to be careful, otherwise, you'll regret your carelessness. Our example sentence. It might have been a minor damage, but I decided to take the car to the mechanic anyway. It's better to be safe than sorry. Another sentence. Even though it is a minor injury, do get a tetanus shot, for it is better to be safe than sorry. Our reading list next has between the devil and the deep blue sea. This means that one may be facing two equally unpleasant, dangerous, or risky alternatives when the avoidance of one ensures encountering the harm of the other. It means that one is caught in a dilemma. Our example sentence. The farmers' agitation at the Delhi borders has put the government in a situation where it is between the devil and the deep blue sea. It can neither withdraw its legislation nor easily pacify the agitating farmers. Our 10th proverb is April showers bring May flowers. This means that it is the law of nature that adversity is followed by good fortune. This comes from the fact that poor, often rainy weather in April can prove beneficial to blooming plant life in May. Let's have a look at our example sentence. He was devastated when his wife left him. but he soon found the love of his life. Well, April showers do bring May flowers. Another one. He may have lost his fortune in share trading, but April showers bring May flowers, and he learned his lesson well and recovered most of it. We now move on to the proverb, an idle brain is the devil's workshop. This means that when one has nothing to do, one is more likely to get into trouble. It is a fact of life that people who have nothing worthwhile to think about will usually think of something bad to do. On to our example sentence. You must keep your children busy on weekends. For an idle mind is the devil's workshop, and they may get up to some mischief. Let's look at another one. Why are you wasting your time doing nothing? Don't you know an idle mind is the devil's workshop? Next, we have the proverb, a cat may look at a king. Now, this lesser used proverb simply means that someone who is inferior in any form is not totally restricted or restrained in how they behave in front of a superior. On the other hand, it also means that everyone has rights, regardless of status, especially to do things that are of no consequence to others. Let's try out a sentence. Please don't tell me how to spend my time. A cat may look at a king, and I shall do what I please. Another sentence. A cat may look at a king, but for you to tell your boss that he is not being fair to you may lead to trouble. So be careful. Our 13th proverb is a fool and his money are soon parted. This means that foolish people spend money without thinking. It is perceived as a rebuke if you say it about the person you are addressing. This proverb points out that it is easy to persuade someone who is not sensible to spend their money on worthless things. And on to our example sentence. Sunil keeps lending money to one and all. A classic case of a fool and his money are soon parted. Another sentence. He keeps investing in doubtful securities. Oh well, a fool and his money are soon parted. Our list of proverbs now has a great talker is a great liar. It means that if a person is a good talker, he can talk so well that he can also lie very well, as he can convince anyone with his talking skills. What you would call a glib talker or a smooth talker. To use it in a sentence, we have Alok may appear to be a friendly person, always ready with a word of advice, but do remember that a great talker is a great liar. Another one. Builders and politicians are all alike, always ready to promise the impossible. Oh well, a great talker is a great liar, I suppose. Next, we move on to the proverb, a guilty conscience needs no accuser. This means that a feeling of guilt and remorse can be so strong that it will prompt an offender to confess, even if no one is requiring them to do so or accuses them of wrongdoing. Let's try a sentence for this interesting proverb. Even though no one noticed her eating all the ice cream, Adya felt so bad about what she had done that she confessed to her mother. A guilty conscience needs no accuser, indeed. Then we have, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. Most things that happen will benefit somebody, somewhere, sometime. It'll be a really disastrous happening that brings no advantages at all. Even the most negative or harmful situations usually benefit someone. Thus, a situation that benefits no one must be truly bad and rare. Using it in a sentence, we have, being down with COVID was bad, but I met the love of my life in one of the nurses at the hospital. Truly, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. Our 17th proverb is, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. A little learning is a dangerous thing, since having a cursory or limited amount of knowledge about something can make one overestimate how well they will be able to do something much larger in scope or scale. Our example sentence says, just because he had studied chemistry in high school, he thought he could discuss it in a classroom, but ended up confusing the students. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing indeed. Another one. The problem in our rural areas is that trained quacks are trying to cure big diseases and ending up killing their patients. A classic case of a little knowledge being a dangerous thing. Next, we have the proverb, a miss is as good as a mile. This means that failing or losing by a small margin is just as bad as failing or losing by a larger margin. In other words, almost having done something is the same as not having done it at all, since in both cases the thing does not get done. Our example sentence says, it's no use claiming you missed selection in the civil services by a mere 2 marks. A miss is as good as a mile. Another one. We missed the train as it was pulling out of the station. Well, a miss is as good as a mile. Let's now move on to a penny saved is a penny earned. Money that you save is more valuable than money that you spend right away. It is good to save money, for every small amount helps to build one's savings. Using it in a sentence, we have, it is not wise to go on a shopping binge whenever you get paid. A penny saved is a penny earned, and it is wise to save for the future. Or a word of advice for you, now that you have your first job, you ought to open a savings account. A penny saved is a penny earned, and you grow rich by saving, not spending. Our 20th proverb is, a man is known by the company he keeps. This means that a person tends to be very similar in attitude, character, ability, or personality to the people with whom they associate or spend time with. It is a fact of life that a person tends to associate with people who are like him or her. Let's use it in a sentence. If you want to know what kind of a person Raj is, Look at his friends. A man is known by the company he keeps. Another one. Take care of the friends you make in life. For a man is known by the company he keeps. Well, our next proverb is a closed mouth catches no flies. Now, this means that it is better to keep one's mouth shut and not say anything than to engage in idle chatter and potentially say something inappropriate. And on to our example sentence. Keeping in mind that a shut mouth catches no flies, I made sure not to say anything out of turn during the meeting, as I was not an expert on the subject. We now move on to the proverb, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Now, this can be said of a person who wanders or travels often and at length, will not be burdened by attachments such as friends, family, or possessions. It can also be used as a negative to suggest that such a person won't find a fulfilling place in life, or you use it as a positive to suggest that they will have a more interesting and unpredictable life. Interesting the way it can be used to mean both the positive as well as the negative aspects. Right, let's try a sentence. I was so eager to get out there and see the world, living in as many countries and trying as many new things as possible that I never got married and had children. A rolling stone gathers no moss, and I felt allergic to moss at the time. Then we have the much used proverb, a stitch in time saves nine. Now, this means that if you fix a smaller problem right away, it will not become a bigger problem later. In other words, solving a difficulty while it is small may save a great deal of trouble in the end. Our example sentence says, it's better to attend to small maintenance problems around the house before they require major repairs. A stitch in time saves nine, you know. Another sentence. You better bring your car to the workshop while it's still running because a stitch in time saves nine. Next is the proverb, cross the stream where it is shallowest. Now, this means to do something by using the easiest method available, to do things in the easiest possible way. In other words, this proverb is asking you not to make difficulties for yourself by doing things the hard way. Find the simplest means of achieving your objective. Let's see an example sentence. Don't complicate your life by trying to find hidden meanings in everything. Take things easy and cross the stream where it is shallowest. Another one. Don't worry about the various ways of completing this project. Just cross the stream where it is shallowest and do it the usual way. The next proverb is, all roads lead to Rome. This means that the same outcome can be reached by many methods or ideas. Now, this phrase refers to the road system of the Roman Empire, in which Rome was positioned in the center, with every road leading to it. This also means that there are many different routes to the same goal, and many different methods will produce the same result. Let's try out a sentence. All roads lead to Rome, so you can approach the Rubik's Cube puzzle any way you like, as long as you solve it. Another one. So long as you meet the deadline, I don't care how much help you get. After all roads lead to Rome. Then we come to the proverb, all that glitters is not gold. A much used proverb, it means that things that have an outward appeal are often not as beautiful or valuable as they seem. It is also used as a warning that just because something looks attractive does not mean it is genuine or valuable, because something attractive is not always what it seems. Using it in a sentence, we have, if the spam offers in your email seem too good to be true, just remember that all that glitters is not gold, and you would be well advised to avoid such offers. Another one, a Bollywood lifestyle may look attractive, but all that glitters is not gold. There is a lot of hard work and pain behind the celluloid glitter. The 27th proverb on your reading list is all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Now, though this proverb has been about for a long time, it is especially applicable to today's generation. Working too much can be bad for one's health or can make one boring. It is not healthy for someone to work all the time and never play. This is often used to exhort someone to stop working or to justify why you have stopped working. Coming to our example sentence, we have, I do know that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But I really have to finish this project tonight and can't join you at the club. Another one. I have decided to take a year-long break from work and travel around Europe. After all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Next, we come to an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This saying comes from various passages in the Bible, including in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. It means that compensation or retribution should be of an equal amount or degree to the injury or offense that was originally dealt. It is used to refer to the belief that retaliation in kind is the appropriate way to deal with an offense or crime. Now, whether it is still believed or not, that's up to you. Let's see an example sentence. Don't try to placate me with excuses and apologies. I demand an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Another one. I do know that it is better to forgive your enemy, but I am deeply hurt by his actions. I demand retaliation in kind, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Then we have the proverb, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care. This simply means that if you put in a little effort to prevent a problem, you will not have to put in a lot of effort to solve the problem. In other words, working to stop something from happening is easier and better than having to try and resolve it later. Let's try out a sentence. You must get all the vaccinations done for your baby, for an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Another one, we should brush our teeth regularly to avoid dental problems. For an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of care. Our 30th proverb is, a watched kettle never boils. This means that when you want something to happen, paying too much attention to it will make the wait feel much longer. When we are looking forward to something, time always seems to pass very slowly, just as it does when we are standing impatiently waiting for the kettle to come to boil. Our example sentence says, you should do something with your time instead of just sitting there waiting for the doctor to call. A watched kettle never boils after all. Another one, stop waiting near the phone for your interview call. For a watched kettle never boils. The call will come in its own sweet time. We now come to the less used but nevertheless true proverb. Cut your coat according to your cloth. Now, this very practical proverb advises you to shop or act in accordance with your financial limitations. It also means to undertake or do only what you have the money or ability to do and no more. Our example sentence, you may dream big, but it is always better to cut your coat according to your cloth. Another sentence, 2020 has not been a good year for us financially, and we must be prepared to cut our coat according to our cloth and live frugally. Then we have, let sleeping dogs lie. This means to leave a situation alone so as to avoid worsening it. Now, if you tell someone to let sleeping dogs lie, you're warning them not to interfere in a situation or not to talk about problems that have happened in the past. To avoid interfering in a situation that is currently causing no problems, but may well do so as a consequence of such interference. Our example sentence, we know that we would never reach an agreement over this matter, so it's better to let sleeping dogs lie and not discuss it anymore. Another one, as far as political discussions go, it is better to let sleeping dogs lie and avoid them, for we risk alienating our friends and relatives. Next, we come to blood is thicker than water. This means that family ties are closer than any other relationships, and people who are related have stronger obligations to each other than to people outside the family. The term is based on the idea that water evaporates without leaving a mark, whereas blood leaves a stain. And on to our example sentence. When you are in trouble, it is often your family that rushes to help you, for blood is thicker than water. Another one. Sumitra dropped everything to help her brother in trouble, even when all his friends disappeared. For blood is thicker than water. Our 34th proverb is, call a spade a spade. Now, this means to call something by its right name, to speak directly, frankly, and bluntly about something, even if it is unpleasant or offends people. Now, let's try out an example sentence. He is never afraid to call a spade, and that is why he is held in high esteem by his organization. Another one. I know that you like Raj, but I will call a spade and advise you to avoid him, for he is a liar and an undependable person. Next, we come to a truism. Charity begins at home. Now, this means that you should deal with the needs of people close to you before you start to help others who are far away. In other words, one has to make adequate provisions for their family before one helps out needy strangers. Let's try out a sentence. Rohini spends the money that she earns on social work and neglects her own family, forgetting that charity begins at home. Another one. She spends long hours on volunteer work and neglects her children, forgetting that charity begins at home. Let's study the next proverb. Chance favors the prepared mind. Now, this means that the more prepared or knowledgeable you are, the more likely you will be able to make the most of chance opportunities and observations. When you prepare yourself for life, chances are often in your favor. That does not mean that you will be the luckiest person in the world, but it does mean that if you put yourself in a position for success, luck is likely to be on your side. To make an example sentence, we have history is filled with examples of great discoveries and inventions by years of training, dedication, and even failure necessary to prepare the mind. All examples of chance favors the prepared mind. We now come to curiosity killed the cat. This means that being curious can get you into trouble. This is often used to warn someone against prying into others' affairs, especially when it extends to things one does not need to know about. An example sentence. Ram was offended by the constant questioning by Sunil about his divorce and broke off their friendship. A case of curiosity killed the cat. Another sentence could be, though he knew all about the matter, he refused to divulge it to anyone, only saying that curiosity killed the cat. And now a proverb which gives really good advice. Paddle your own canoe. This is asking you to be able to act without having to depend on anyone, to decide your own fortune, to be independent and self-reliant. Using it in a sentence, we have, now that you are 30, people expect you to paddle your own canoe. And you can't just depend financially on your parents forever. Another sentence for you. She is a strong woman and can paddle her own canoe without having a man in her life. Then we move on to desperate times call for desperate measures. This means that extreme and undesirable circumstances or situations can only be resolved by resorting to equally extreme actions. It is derived from the proverb, desperate diseases must have desperate remedies. You may also say that undesirable circumstances have to be countered by drastic actions. Trying out an example sentence, we have the austerity measures introduced by the government during the COVID-induced recession are unpopular, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Another sentence, after repeated terrorist attacks, the government decided to retaliate in kind against our neighbor. For desperate times, call for desperate measures. Our 40th proverb is, Discretion is the better part of valor. This means that sometimes it is sensible to avoid a dangerous or unpleasant situation, for caution is more important than bravery. The expression emphasizes the importance of being cautious and reserving acts of bravery for when they are actually needed. Using it in an example sentence, we have, I know you want to try that risky bungee jump, but remember that discretion is the better part of valor. Another sentence could be, he wanted to hit back at his opponents, but decided that discretion is the better part of valor and he would get his chance at revenge some other time. Then we have different strokes for different folks. This means that different people will have different preferences, for different people like different things and live in different ways. And now an example sentence. My brother loves cooking, but I hate being in the kitchen. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. Another sentence. You may like chatting on social media, but I get bored with all the good morning and other meaningless messages. Different strokes for different folks, you know. Next is the proverb to keep body and soul together. This means to manage to keep existing, especially when one has very little money, to survive, especially through very modest means. Let's see an example sentence. After my expensive surgery, I barely had enough to keep body and soul together. Another sentence. Hari said that he would not be able to keep body and soul together on the salary he was being offered at his new job. Our 43rd proverb is a dog in the manger. Now, this is used to refer to someone who prevents others from enjoying something despite having no use for it, being spiteful and mean spirited. Now, this is someone who insists on possessing something that they do not want or need out of spite to prevent someone else from having it. Let's try out an example sentence. Come on, Ravi, stop being such a dog in the manger and let your sister ride your bike since you are not using it. Another one. Rashmi, like a dog in the manger, refused to give her older sister the textbook she needed to complete her school assignment. Next is a bit of worldly advice to cry over spilt milk. In other words, do not be excessively regretful of minor accidents and incidents. To be upset over something that cannot be fixed. To be upset over something minor. It also means to dwell pointlessly about a mistake that can no longer be changed, like past misfortunes, or to feel sorry about something that has already happened. And now for our example sentence. It's no use crying over spilt milk. It was a bad investment. The money has been lost and there's nothing we can do. Another one. The school excursion was a disaster, but there was no use crying over spilt milk now. We now come to cross one's palm with silver. This means to pay someone, often as a bribe, but it also means to pay money to someone in payment for a service. Let's try out an example sentence. With a high rate of corruption in our country, It is unfortunately often easy to get your job done by crossing someone's palm with silver. Another sentence could be, he was happy with the waiter for his prompt service and crossed his palm with silver. Another word of advice from our Proverbs, to cut off one's nose to spite one's face. In other words, do not try to spite or get even with someone if it is damaging to you too, or to injure oneself in taking revenge against another. Our example sentence, he cut off his nose to spite his face when he refused to go to the important conference, as he did not like the organizer and thus lost an important client. Our 47th proverb is to make a mountain of a molehill. This means to get worked up or angry about a small or insignificant issue. It also means to exaggerate the importance of any event or thing. Let's see an example sentence. Don't worry about his anger. He used to make a mountain of a molehill. Another sentence could be, to impress his audience, he made a mountain of a molehill and spoke at great length of his trekking experience. Next is the proverb, to put the cart before the horse. This means to do things in the wrong order or sequence, or reverse the right method of doing something. Using it in a sentence, we have, I think you are putting the cart before the horse by leaving your job before getting a new one. Another one could be, why do you put the cart before the horse by sleeping all day and working at nights? Our penultimate proverb is to shut the barn door after the horse is gone. Now, this is a word of advice to prepare for things to go wrong instead of worrying about them and taking precautions after the fact. In other words, there is no use in being wise after the event. Our example sentence says, there is no use in shutting the barn door after the horse is gone. You have already lost all your investments. Let's try one more. The only COVID samples frozen indefinitely are the ones that have already tested positive. A classic case of shutting the barn door after the horse is gone. Our final proverb in this video is to call to account. Now, this means to ask one to explain and justify one's behavior, policy, performance, etc. It also means to confront or question one about one's wrongdoings. And our final example sentence, the manager called him to account for his outburst during the meeting. Another one, during the elections, the public finally called him to account for his non-performance in the last 5 years. Well, that's all from me in this, the second of 4 videos on Proverbs. With that, we have learned 100 Proverbs. Hope these are useful in improving your English language skills. Do look out for my third video on Proverbs too. This video is based on the information freely available on the internet. No originality is claimed for the same. The intention of this video is only to prepare candidates for answering examination questions on the subject and not for any financial gain. Do like and share this video and do subscribe to my channel now so that you do not miss out on my previous or future videos. Till later then, cheerio.